All right, welcome to this edition of the Contractor Commute. We are here today with Craig Henley, better known as
Mr. Insurance.
Mr. Insurance.
Yes.
And so thanks for coming, Craig. Let's go. So we are going to get into a fun conversation on insurance, what it is, why you need it, especially if you're a contractor, and kind of talk through it from your perspective as the insurance guy who's seen the good, bad, and ugly of what can happen with or without insurance. And it's probably a subject most guys just don't know a lot about and maybe don't want to know a lot about, which is where you come in. I'm a big fan of finding people who are smarter than me and just asking them questions. And so that's what we're going to get into today. Before we get started, Craig, can you give us a little background about who you are, how you got in insurance, and if somebody wants to look you up right now, where would they find you?
So again, Craig Henley, Mr. Insurance. I have clients that actually probably don't even know my name. Like even when they leave me voicemails, it's, hey, Mr. Insurance. Yeah, that's what we need. I've been in the insurance industry for about 10 years or so now. Got started out on the life and health side of things and switched over to property and casualty, which is the insurance that we're talking about today, about 10 years ago, and have loved the journey ever since. I actually have a website. I've trademarked the whole Mr. Insurance thing, and I like it because there's never a question of what do you do? I mean, when you're Mr. Insurance, it's pretty easy to say he does insurance. So mrinsurance.net, all spelled out, is the website. It tells a little bit about myself and who I am and the history and the background. I currently serve as Vice President of Sales at One Source Insurance Group. That's my home base, and function out of that office, and really do all sides of insurance: personal insurance, life insurance, disability, long-term care, and then, of course, commercial insurance and all aspects of commercial insurance, everything from commercial auto to general liability, work comp, inland marine, umbrella, whatever it would be. Kind of being in that Mr. Insurance world and wearing that hat, you kind of have to know a little bit about all of it. So I would say my focus is, you never want to be a jack of all trades and master of none. So I spend the vast majority of my time in that personal and commercial side of insurance. I do all those other things, but I have great resources for all of those to help out with, and great connections. So, but that's me, married almost 27 years here coming up. In October, we have 3 boys. They're all in school, and my wife is here in Springfield. She works as an ER physician at Mercy Hospital, and I do the insurance thing, and I honestly love it. Like I wake up every day, and it's tough at times, in the insurance industry, but probably my favorite part about the job is the relationships and working with people.
Yeah. I think as we get into it and we'll talk about the specifics of what insurance people need. But I think I'm a fan of starting with the why and like why it's so important to have it. So, again, our audience is a lot of people who own and operate a contracting business, and that might be a one-man show. It could be a large operation, anywhere between 1 and 500 employees. And so if we just got into specifically the, why do you need insurance if you're running a contracting business? That's a broad question. But if I'm a contractor and say, hey, why do I even need insurance? How do you take that?
Well, there's that quick, easy response. Well, why not? But I think that's too vague. I don't care what city you're in or what town or municipality. If you're driving around and your head is up, you're going to see a billboard somewhere that designates an attorney who says, hey, call me if something's happened. We live in a very litigious world right now. And people, as a general rule, have a problem with accepting responsibility for their own actions. So if I'm a contractor that's out there, I have to know that if something happens, be it my fault or not my fault, someone is very likely going to come after me, come after my business to try to point the blame. And the purpose of insurance would be to not only protect you against whatever that risk might be, but then there's the whole other side of insurance that I think is so often forgotten or not understood, and that's the defense side. Yes, you have insurance that can pay out in the event of a claim, but that's only if you're determined as it's your fault, right? And that's the settlement piece of it. But there's the whole defense side that the insurance company has to do. So if you're uninsured and you're out there and something happens and an attorney is involved, which most likely is going to happen, if you don't have insurance, you're now stuck with that legal defense. So it's very easy to say from a financial standpoint, well, I don't want to pay for insurance. I don't have that risk, or I'm careful. There's too many circumstances under which things can happen where you can still be determined that you're responsible, even if you're not necessarily at fault. So I would tell anybody that's in the contracting world, have a conversation. Reach out to someone you know in the insurance industry and just give them an overview of your business. And, you can sit here and say, well, an insurance agent's just going to want to sell me stuff. Well, there may be some out there that function in that capacity. I don't, and most don't. We're there to protect you. Our job is to protect you, to educate you on what your risks are, and then provide you with resources to mitigate or eliminate those risks from your life. And contractors are busy. They have a lot on their plate, and the better they are, the busier they are. So dealing with a claim is not something that they want to have to deal with, and you wouldn't want to have to deal with that. So when you've got insurance, it's business as usual from your perspective, and let the insurance company do their job. So
I think when you say that, like every city and town I've been to does have, I lived in 2 different places, and there's like the famous lawyer in every city whose name's in the billboard. It's like, call me if you've been hurt on the job, or call me. It's like, those guys are, and so it does. I mean, I think culturally have seen that. Where people are victim thinkers. They don't want to take responsibility. If something goes wrong in my world, I want someone to blame.
Right.
And I think guys in this industry, in the contracting world, got to know you're on that list of people to blame if something goes wrong. And if and insurance really is a CYA of like making sure that, if someone comes after me, I've got the tool I need to make sure that I'm not going to get sued, go out of business, go bankrupt, and then waste all my time trying to figure out how to even manage all this stuff. You bring in the pro, somebody who knows what they're doing, and then you don't have to deal with it. I know we were kind of talking earlier on just stories of cases and situations you've been around where insurance either saved someone's bacon or the lack of it put them out of business.
Yeah.
You have any examples of times when you got a lot, but give us a couple of examples of times when insurance came to play for a contractor.
So I have I had a gentleman that has a truck and trailer that runs a contracting, like a renovation type business. No new builds, anything like that. Just goes in and does kind of a fixer-upper type guy, and has a truck and trailer, and then the trailer is full of tools and equipment that he uses for his trade. Well, on one particular job site, he had an employee that needed the truck, so they dropped the trailer. It's sitting there. The truck leaves. He pulls a ladder out and uses the ladder to get onto the roof of this house. So he steps up on top of the trailer and then steps up onto the roof of this house, and I think he was fixing a window or something. And at one point, he thought he heard something, so he walked over to the edge of the roof and looked down, and someone was hooking up to his trailer. They clearly did not know that he was up on the roof working or weren't paying that close attention. They saw an unhooked trailer ready to go. So they're hooking up to the trailer. So he steps off the roof onto the trailer to step down onto the ladder to investigate what's happening. And as he steps down to the trailer starts pulling away.
No way.
So he's on the trailer, and of course has to jump. But that's just, it's you hear stories like this, and that's where you can, it's an unfortunate situation, and it sucks. But there are bad people out there, and I feel like criminals are even more brazen. I mean, we see it in the grocery stores where they walk in and they steal stuff, and they're just daring somebody to stop them.
Yeah.
And most of the stores have taken the mindset of just let them go, like it's not worth the risk. Well, I don't function in that world. If you're taking my stuff, I'm going to intervene, right? And I think most contractors operate under that same mentality. So in this situation, he jumps off the trailer, and it was an insurance issue. It's, providing coverage for the trailer, providing coverage for the tools and contents, and there's different types of coverage to protect all those different things. But just very interesting scenarios where, had we not had a detailed conversation, there are circumstances where that trailer may not have been covered.
Right.
There are circumstances where the tools in that trailer may not have been covered. And to me, if you're not explaining all the details of your business and what you do with someone who knows, then you're doing yourself an injustice, because in this same situation, this gentleman may have had a claim, but no coverage.
Right.
And imagine replacing a box trailer with all this tools and
Yeah.
equipment in it. Not only are you out the tools and the equipment, but that's your livelihood.
Yeah.
So now the tools you need to pay your bills, the tools you need to replace the loss that you've just incurred are gone. So what do?
Yeah.
That's a difficult situation.
And I think there's probably guys listening right now who've had similar stories where their truck was broken into or someone attempted to steal their trailer. Break down, like for me, like I'm a new guy, I just started. I don't know anything about insurance, right? If I am that guy, what insurance would I have had in that scenario where someone hooks up to my trailer, taking my stuff? What would I have needed to have to be protected there?
Well, clearly, coverage for the trailer. So in the commercial world, for the most part, if you're going to insure a trailer as property, as value, you can't put just a trailer on a commercial auto policy. It has to have a truck or something to move it with it. So it's making sure that we have, a commercial auto policy if that's appropriate. Or, does this individual, you can still use your personal property in your entity depending upon how your business is set up, so on and so forth. But, are we protecting the trailer? Are we protecting the contents of that trailer? What is the value? To some degree as contractors, you may say if you lose a hammer, well, that's a cost of business, right? Or if a saw breaks or I break a drill bit or something like that, it's a cost of business. It's a byproduct of what happens. So how much of the stuff that you have are you comfortable losing as, hey, it's just a byproduct of owning a business? And how much is it is if I lose this, I don't have this, it now impacts my ability to succeed as a contractor. So providing that type of coverage and then backing up even further, like general liability coverage. So in the commercial world, they offer a product that's called a BOP. It's a business owner's policy. And in that, there's really two pieces, and then there's layers that can get under that. The two pieces are the property side. So are there property pieces that I need to cover, and the liability side. I would tell any contractor you need a general liability coverage. It's slip and fall coverage. So, but if you're in a property working and something, your tools or your electric cords, your extension cord, your airline hose to your compressor, if it's in the way and somebody's walking through that site, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's the homeowner, a neighbor, or someone who doesn't belong there. If they trip and fall over your stuff or your equipment causes an injury, that's a liability claim, and it's going to be on you as an insured. The whole other side of that is, and I think this is the part that's oftentimes not thought of, because every contractor is going to tell you, oh, I don't leave tools laying around, or I pick up all my stuff, and if somebody's around, I'm telling them, hey, be careful. Mm-hmm. Number one, that doesn't happen, but we like to think that it does, right? But let's assume you've finished a job, the job's complete, and you're 6 months, a year, 2 years done with that job, and something that you've worked on malfunctions. Doesn't matter what it is or why, but the homeowner comes back and says, wow, this is the piece that Bob worked on. Mm-hmm. Guess what, Bob? They're coming after you. So the part of general liability coverage is products completed and operations coverage. So your product that's completed is still insured. Now, it's important that you maintain coverage during that 2-year time. But yes, your insurance coverage will go back and pick up from when that event occurred. And even if you're with a different carrier, if it's when it occurred, that prior carrier will pick it up because you've still got the coverage. So that to me is such a big piece of the liability side of things. It's not just current liability, but it's potential future liability.
And I think for the guy who's uninsured, who gets that phone call or gets served those papers, who says, hey, there was an electrical fire that started because of an outlet in a house that you worked on 6 months ago. If I'm not insured, I got to stop my life and figure out how the heck I'm going to deal with this.
What am I going to do?
Go find a lawyer and start incurring legal fees, and you know what I mean? And I think guys are crazy to think something like that can't or won't happen to them.
And be realistic. Put yourself in the shoes of that homeowner as the contractor. Your house just caught on fire from a location where work was done previously. It's not on you. And even your insurance company is probably going to, if you file a claim with your homeowner's insurance, they're going to say, well, what work was done here? Oh, a contractor did this. Guess what? We're going after the contractor. Mm-hmm. So you, Mr. and Mrs. Contractor that's out there that don't have insurance, You may think, well, I'm okay. I can fix that outlet or repair that damage. Well, if they're suing you, the insurance company, again, I mentioned this earlier, provides the legal defense.
Right.
So your insurance company can be there to defend you throughout this litigation process, which can drag on for years.
Right.
So do you want this over your head, or do you want to get back to business as usual? Hey, I worked with my agent. I told him all the aspects of my business. I told him everything that I do. He's got me covered, or she's got me covered. Not all insurance agents are guys, right? But I'm covered, and I can get back to business as usual and do what I do best. That's being a contractor. I don't need to be an attorney. I don't need to be an insurance agent. I don't need to be I'm back to doing my job, and let that part handle it. That has to be very reassuring, no matter what industry you're in, to know that, hey, I've taken the appropriate steps. That's what insurance is for. Let it do what it's designed to do. And
I think some people look at that whole everyone's suing everyone in America these days. And it's like, just people just have a disdain for that. And I do. I hate that. But that's what it is. And that's where we are. And so you got to understand that someone will, I think it's a great point, that homeowner will think about you, or that insurance company they have will absolutely think about you, because it's their job to figure out how not to pay for it and how to blame someone else.
Right.
And so having, and it's, you don't have to like the game, but it is what it is.
It is the game.
As someone once said, don't hate the player.
Don't hate the player, hate the
game. And it is making sure you got yourself covered. Talk me through, we were telling the story earlier about the guy drilling into the wall.
So this actually happened to me personally. We were doing a kitchen remodel at our first house. This is probably back in 2009, 2010, probably 2009. We were doing a kitchen remodel. It was a complete gut. We were taking everything out, and they were running new wire. And I was standing in the kitchen as the contractor was drilling. I was talking to him. He had an electric drill in his hand, drilling through a 2x4 sideways to run new wire. And when the drill punched through the wire, he made contact with a 220-volt wire that was powering the double oven that was in there that was getting removed. And the drill literally exploded in his hand. It was like a gun went off. And I was just sitting here thinking to myself, back in that time frame, holy cow, what are the risks that's there? He could have been electrocuted. I could have been injured by shrapnel because the drill literally exploded. What if there'd have been a fire?
Yeah.
What if the oven wasn't part of the renovation and now the oven is shot? What does this contractor have? What's the coverage? And this guy knows what he was doing. He'd been doing this for a long time. It was just an accident, 100%. He didn't know the wire was there. And there are those that would say, well, he should have known, he should have protected, we should have turned the power off. Maybe. But, sometimes as humans, we make lapses in judgment. We're like, oh, this is just, it'll be quick. It's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. And that's all that it takes in this insurance world. So, I just think, err on the side of caution. And there's a big misconception to me in any industry, but especially in the contracting industry, that insurance is expensive. It's unaffordable. Well, it's really not that bad. I think you have to be honest in what you're doing. So, we talk about coverages and what's important. Sub out the work that you shouldn't be doing, right? So don't have anything to do with, if you're a contractor, don't do roof work. Sub that out to an insured person that just does roofing. The electrical, the plumbing, sub that stuff out. I was working with a contractor recently that, if there was an occasional fireplace that needed to be put in, like an insert or something like that, he would do it. Well, when shopping for his coverage, him providing installation of these fireplaces, his premium was significantly more because there's, think of the risk and exposure there. You don't do it right, it's flame.
Right. Yeah.
So the house burns down.
Yeah.
So the insurance carrier said, hey, we'll provide coverage for this, but the premium is very, very high. And the insured is sitting here saying, well, it's 5% of my business. I will just not do that. But again, had he and I not had that conversation, we wouldn't have known what to do. And it's now me going back and educating him. Look, you don't do this part of your business. So sub out the stuff that you shouldn't be doing. But also, if you're not going to do roofing, okay, and your website has a picture of a guy on a roof,
right?
The insurance company is going to assume that you do roofing. So be honest and transparent in what you do. Talk to your agent, and let's get the right coverage that's in place to make sure that you're protected for those what if type situations, because you just don't know. And this misconception that it's expensive, it's we can provide the coverage that's there, and it is more affordable. And the best part about contracting to me, we all probably have cars in our lives, right? Well, that insurance expense for our cars, we pay that. So we have to generate the money and we pay for that insurance on our car. You as a contractor, your insurance expense, you do realize this is a pass-through expense. All of the insurance expense that you're paying can be passed on to the clients that you work with as a cost of business. So look at how many projects you do over the course of a year or the course of a month. Look at what your insurance expense is and line item that into your Congenius offers a fantastic way to manage everything that you're doing with regards to your contract expense. It's a line item expense, guys and gals. This is so simple. Who wouldn't want to work with a contractor that's insured? So point that out when you're sitting down and providing them this bid for this work. Hey, this is how much it costs. I have to, just the same as you have to have insurance on your home and your cars, I have to have insurance on my stuff. But not only do I have to have it, you want me to have it, because if something goes wrong, isn't it nice to know that I've got it covered, right? So point that out on your bid and pass the expense through. You're not paying for something that you can't recoup.
I think that's a great point. I mean, and obviously, with Congenius, we do talk about, setting your markup, setting your profit to make sure you're covering your overhead, the cost of doing business, right? So someone might say, insurance is expensive, but when you're saying, you're rolling the dice saying, hey, I'm willing to go out of business if I'm wrong. I'm willing to get sued if I'm wrong, and so I think that it's a great point, and it is a selling point. I think, can you break that down more? So if you're telling a customer you're selling a job and you're like, hey, here's a benefit, because we talk about not being the cheapest guy, and hey, you do great work, learning how to charge for that, making sure that you're properly getting compensated for the expertise you bring. If you are, talk to me about if a contractor is working and doesn't have insurance in someone's home, where can that go wrong? And why is it so important for a contractor to have that insurance? And maybe even from that lens of I'm selling the homeowner, and why practically what could happen if I don't?
So there are contract, and again, keep in mind, I get these phone calls. I deal with these circumstances all the time. There's the general contractor that's out there that says, if I'm going to compete against the guys that do have insurance is an expense. It's a bottom line impact. So if I have to add insurance to my bottom line, I then have to raise my prices. But if I don't have insurance, I'm now more competitive. So if somebody's comparing pricing for a flooring job for their kitchen, well, if I don't have to have insurance, I don't have to charge as much.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get the job. Well, yes, you might. But now, again, you're absorbing all of that exposure with it. And I like to use the analogy of a trapeze artist. We all know at some point in our life we've seen or heard or watched a circus, right? And those trapeze people are spinning around up there, but there's a safety net below them. So if something happens, the net catches them. That's insurance, right? Well, if you don't have insurance, you're out there, you're that trapeze guy flipping around, and some flip more dangerously than others. But if and when you fall, more likely when you fall, it's going to hurt because the net's not there to catch you. So using that example, this flooring guy that doesn't have insurance because he's more competitive. If something happens with the floor, if there's damage, maybe in installing the flooring, you accidentally hit a water line that's in the ground. And it doesn't matter the circumstances why, but now there's this slow drip over time that suddenly appears in this huge, over the course of the next month, and all of a sudden, all of this water damage comes to light, and they circle it back to your nail that went through that floor that you put in, or the installation of that floor somehow. Guess what? Now your lack of insurance has cost you profoundly more on the back end side of things. And, some businesses would not be able to recoup from that. I mean, that'd be a catastrophic end to whatever your business was.
Talking about the GC who's working with subs. I am subbing it out. You mentioned, hey, if I'm subbing out my roof work, why is it important to make sure that roofer has insurance on a job that I'm the GC on?
So there's really multiple components to that. If you're a contractor, I would always tell you 100% of the time, make sure the subs that you're working with can provide proof of insurance. Because again, if you're going to have it, you want to make sure those that do. There's also a component of your insurance, assuming you have coverage and you're insured, you have an obligation that your subs need to have general liability coverage equal to or greater than your limits. Because if they don't, most policies get an audit at the end of the year. So they're going to look at who you paid, who you worked with, and they're going to ask for proof of coverage from those subs. If you don't have it, that sub that you use that didn't have insurance, you're going to pay for that.
Brutal.
When the audit comes around. So yes, it's kind of this, double-edged sword. Well, now I got to have insurance and my subs have to have it. But guys and gals, that to me, that's the fix. I mean, insurance is not that expensive, but if it's done the right way, all things level out. It makes the playing field a lot easier. So your subs, they should have insurance equal to yours. If you're using them on a consistent basis, your business should be an additional insured on their policy, meaning their coverage also protects you. Because if they're doing the work and you've hired them to do it, if they screw up, wouldn't you want to be covered? So yes, I want to be an additional insured.
Because that homeowner is going to come after you and say, well, you hired that plumber. Like, I didn't choose them, you did.
That's exactly right. You wrote the check. They wrote the check to you. So they don't care who you subbed the job out to. And then in addition to that, I would honestly ask for 30-day notice of cancellation with all of my subcontractors. Why? Because that certificate of insurance that they provided you that says that they have coverage, what if they stop paying their coverage? So now they're being canceled. Well, wouldn't you want to know if a sub that you're using their insurance is getting canceled? Because that's a conversation where you sit down and go, hey, you don't have insurance. I can't use you. So let's fix this. It's such. I mentioned roofing. I mentioned electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Any of those industries where it comes with an inherent amount of risk. Sub 100% of that out. Don't incorporate that into a piece of your business, and because there's a reason you don't want to do that. There's inherently more risk long term for those types of industries. So
I think the fireplace thing is a great example. Like, I would have never thought about that. Sure.
Honestly, I didn't either. Like when the carrier came back to me and said, "Hey, you mentioned he does some fireplaces." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's less than 5% of his business. He puts one in here or there, like somebody wants an insert." And the carrier specifically said, "Look, we can provide coverage for that, but the premium." And when I say the premium it was literally like 3 times as much just for that. So it was just really simple. And the conversation was like this: "Hey, if you want to continue to put in fireplaces, the premium is this." Or he's like, "We'll just eliminate that." I'm like, "That's exactly right. I would tell you to."
Yeah.
But obviously, look at your business. If, again, using fireplace inserts as an example, if that's a big component of what you do, well, then the higher premium, you can justify it. Again, that's a pass-through expense, so you can charge more for that appropriately. But if it's a small piece of your business, but again, had he not told me transparently, this is what we do, what happens in that situation where we write the coverage, he's covered, and then all of a sudden there's a fireplace insert? And there's a fire associated with it. So now we're sitting here saying, do we have coverage? Is it covered? Yeah. Maybe it is covered, but now he's canceled at renewal. I mean, so again, I think a big piece of this, specific to contractors, and this isn't not in a negative way at all, but I think sometimes there's this mindset of the less I tell, the better.
Yeah.
Because what they don't know, right? Yep. And I can do this and nobody's really going to know.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is such a small piece of my business, I don't even need to worry about it. But what if something happens in that small piece of the business that you're doing that's maybe more risky than the others, and now all of a sudden you're in a claim situation and the carrier comes back and goes, "Sorry, we don't have coverage for that. You didn't tell us you did that." And it can and does happen. Yeah. So why not be transparent? We can find coverage. Like if it's a part of your business and you need it insured, there's insurance for it. Promise you that it's there. There's nothing that we can't cover. But the premium is associated with that. So, but be transparent, be upfront. And whoever you work with someone that is asking the tough questions, isn't just taking, as contractors, you're contractor experts. You're not expected to be insurance experts. Right. So don't work with an agent that does what you tell them to do. Work with an agent that asks questions and tell me about this. Give me details, not just, "Oh, well, we do this." No, tell me more about that. Like, what are you doing in some detail? Because the last thing that I want is to be in a claim situation and try to figure out, well, where do we find coverage?
Right.
What I want is to be in a claim situation and go, "No problems, man. We got this.
Yeah.
We knew this was a potential risk. And we've taken steps to protect you for that." Because again, as an insured, now you're back to work. You don't worry about it. Let the insurance company do what they do, and you're back to doing what you do best.
Yeah, I've always found it interesting. Like you always find somebody who knows what they're an expert in what they do. And let them do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like even like for the average contractor, like they're great at doing what they do, and you don't want the homeowner hovering her shoulder telling you how to do it. You're like, "Hey, let me do what I do." Same thing with like the other thing. Like I don't love insurance. Like, it doesn't sound like but you do.
I do.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, find the guy who loves it, knows it inside and out, and put him on your team and let them go do what they do on your behalf, And I think it is interesting, because I would guess the average listener right now is like, I'm not necessarily interested in the ins and outs of how policies work and all these things, but they do resonate with I don't want my trailer stolen. And they can think through, like, if I lost all my tools tomorrow, what would I do? Or I just drilled into a hole and my hand exploded. We had one of our customers shoot a nail through his thumb last week, out of work for a while.
Yeah.
Like, what happens there? So I think everyone's had those experiences, but like knowing, hey, like I got the guy who can help me with this.
There's no worse feeling than being in a situation where you're sitting here going, is this covered? Is it not? Like, it's just, to me, it would be a panic type situation, because now you're worried, what did I not say? What did I not do? What did I not disclose to protect myself against this? And you're right. Like, I didn't mention this thing, but I have what's called a designation. It's a certified insurance counselor. It doesn't mean I can sit down and counsel you on insurance. It just means I've taken a lot of courses and a lot of hours of study to get this designation. To all of my clients, they don't care. I'll be honest. They don't care that I have the CIC. Those in the industry, they're patting me on the back saying, hey, this is great that you have it. But what it means is that I've taken a lot of classes. I've taken a lot of study to better understand insurance, to be a better resource to clients. That, to me, is what it's about. I want to work with people and educate them and on what's the best way to proceed with coverage for their particular situation. And I'll mention this. You and I talked a little bit about this earlier, and some of you, if you find the terminology a little bit crass, I apologize, but I think it's just calling a spade a spade. Most people in the insurance world are ignorant. Ignorant just, to me, means uneducated. It doesn't mean we're born ignorant. We don't know how to walk. We don't know how to talk. We don't know how to read. We don't know how to write. Someone educates us on how to do that. When you work with an agent, it's okay to be ignorant. There's no test. There's no final. You're working with a professional. So let me or your agent educate you on what you need. Stupid is, I'm educated and I know, I just choose not to. Are there contractors out there that are stupid? Yes. They know they need insurance. They know that they're swinging on a trapeze with no net, and they choose to do so. It's okay to be ignorant. There's nothing wrong with that. I was ignorant when I got started in insurance, and I educate myself every day through every experience and every client interaction that I have to be the best agent. So come in ignorant, get yourself educated, and make decisions based on the information that you have. But don't be stupid. Know what you need to do, and then still continue to do the wrong thing for the wrong reasons.
That's a great difference between the two. And it's true. Like, I mean, I am ignorant on insurance. I just don't know.
And that's okay.
But that's what you're there for.
Right.
It's kind of like, the contractor shows up, like they're an expert at, laying floor or building a roof or the electric, they're the expert in that thing, and it's like, I don't need to know because, find the right person. If you mentioned it already, but if I'm looking for someone to help me out with this, you mentioned, hey, don't tell them what you need, ask questions, and then work with someone who's going to ask you questions and understand it. Contractors are busy. Most of them are working long hours, long days. It's interesting, even for Congenius, we see a lot of our new customers sign up at like 2:00 in the morning. Yeah. Because that's when they've had the first minute to think about estimating software. You know what I mean? Because they're working. If the guy's kicking the can on making this phone call, how long does it take? Like, if I'm going to call Craig, Mr. Insurance, to help me get this sorted out because I know nothing, what am I talking about on a time commitment here?
Well, here's the beauty of this. I understand in all aspects of insurance, we're busy people. I mean, for most of us, from the time that we wake up, we're probably getting on our phones to check an email or what texts have come in, to the time that we finally lay down or collapse, whatever it is at the end of your day. We're engaged, especially in the contractor world. So guess what? If you were to call me and say, hey, Craig, I'm headed into a project. It's 5:30 in the morning, but that's the best time that I have to talk. Guess what? You're not going to talk at 5:30 in the morning. So find an agent that's willing to work with your hours. Now, again, we have to be respectable. Weekends are weekends. Family time is family time. But we're all busy. And sometimes the conversation, you would not believe the number of people that work on farms that we have to call at 4:30 in the morning, and you're having this conversation as they're milking the cows, because that's when it works out. Yeah. But it's not, the beauty for contractors is this: have a 10, 15, 20-minute conversation with an agent and walk through all aspects of what you do. And that should be enough for us to get enough detail to go out and find out what type of coverage do we need to get. in speaking with the underwriters, there may be some more detailed questions they have, or what's called a supplemental application that asks more details, because maybe you specialize in some specific aspect of contracting that needs more detail. So we have this supplemental application we need to fill out. So I may call back and go, hey, Drew, I need 10 more minutes of your time to get through this 7-page application that has questions I have no clue what the answers are, even through our thorough conversation that we initially had. But once I've got the information, again, it's back to work as usual for you. I'm doing all the grinding. I'm doing all the peddling behind the scenes. I'm going to carriers. I'm looking at carrier options. I'm saying, this is what Drew does. This is what Drew's aspects of his job are. This is the stuff that he does. They're going to go to your website and look and go, I thought he didn't do roofing. Here's a picture of him on a roof. Let me get clarification on that. I'll find out. But literally 15, 20 minutes of your time for the most part is going to give me enough information to go out and get started. And then from there, it's sitting down and saying, okay, how do we want to proceed with this policy? Now, again, every customer is different. Some customers, they want to know about the labor, the delivery, and the baby. So they want the whole backstory. Tell me everything there is to know about insurance. I want to fully understand this. And others are like, Craig, you're the expert. Just bring me the baby. However you are, that's fine. I can educate you as much as you want to know on insurance, and you can walk away and have a pretty good grasp of it. And others are like, Craig, I'm busy. Just tell me what I need. So whatever your needs are, but I think you'd be surprised to find it's not as lengthy of a process as you would think. But the other side of this for me as an agent, speaking to all of you that are out there that are contractors, isn't that 15 or 20 minutes of your time worth it? Mm-hmm. In the grand scheme of a day, a week, a month, a year, what is 15 or 20 minutes of your time just to make sure that you are protected against any possible what if? I mean, it's a snap of time, you know? So it's never as much time as you think, and it's well worth it to make sure that you're protected.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I mean, if, thinking through again, insurance probably isn't a subject people won't necessarily like, man, that sounds like really exciting. But I think through like, if to the guy who's driving right now, look at the billboards, find that lawyer's face. Yeah. That guy's looking at you, well, like, and it's just the way things are, you're going to have accidents. Someone's going to fall. Someone's going to trip. Everyone listening to this has a horror story of some crazy thing that happened on a job site. And so that stuff, it's just going to happen, making sure you've got it covered so you can keep working, get back to work, not lose income, and not deal with the headache of everything that goes along with this. It seems like it makes a lot of sense. But.
It's funny you talk about lawyers, and we had talked about this a little bit earlier, but I have a classic example of I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA, so I can't talk to you about the tax advantages for having an insurance policy or the legal side of having an insurance policy. But I have a client that is by trade a real estate professional. So he functions as a realtor on a daily basis. But as part of his job, he has the opportunity to purchase properties, and he keeps these properties as investment properties. So once he purchases property, that property generally needs to be renovated. Mm-hmm. Well, he functions as his own contractor for all of these renovations. So once he owns the house, he hires the guy to put the carpet in, to redo the floor, to take out this wall and add a third bedroom, to do the roof, to do the electrical. He doesn't swing a hammer. He doesn't pull a nail. He subs out 100% of his work. Well, I was talking with him because I insure his rental properties. And I said, hey, you functioning as a contractor, you have an exposure. And he said, oh, no, I don't. I have this legal form. And I'll kind of look at this here. I won't bore you with all the details. But basically, he has a form that his attorney drafted for him that he has his subs sign that basically says, you assume all the risk, all the responsibility, everything is on you. You can't come back to me in any capacity for anything that happens. And he felt very good about having them sign this form, feeling he's completely relinquished himself of any responsibility. Well, I said, I don't think that's the case. I'm again, not being an attorney, I don't think there's any way that you can completely eliminate all responsibility, especially if you're at fault, right? Mm-hmm. So he emailed his attorney back and said, hey, just for clarification purposes, here's what we have. My insurance agent's telling me I need insurance, but I don't think I do because I have this form. What do you think? And I'm going to I have the letter here, but I'm going to surmise it. Basically, it says, you can still be sued for injuries that occur on your property. This document allows you to sue. And in bold italics, I strongly encourage to purchase the insurance. There are more issues that may come up other than just a sub being injured by the insurance. So to me, that speaks bounds. Here's a guy that is functioning as a contractor, not doing any of the work himself. So even that risk aside, he's 100% mitigating all the risk to somebody else. And his attorney is telling him, you need insurance to do that.
Yeah.
If nothing speaks to the importance of insurance, it's having an attorney telling somebody else. And again, okay, yeah, my attorney says that, but the attorney doesn't pay any insurance premiums. They're not paid. They're looking for protecting their client. That's their number one job. And their attorney is telling them, get the insurance.
Yeah.
What more proof do you need?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, and we talk through the stories, what happens. It happens. And it's like, making sure that you got the safety net back there.
Yeah.
But, I appreciate it. I think, we talked through a lot today. And so if people need to find you again, mrinsurance.net.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And Ian, 15, 20-minute phone call could be saving you everything long term. So
I would tell you, even if it's just a conversation to ask questions, and that's probably the best part about my job. I mean, I tell people that I'd love to be your agent. I really would. But even if I'm not, and you just have, it's always amazing to me the clients that I've had and have left for whatever reason. They call and say, oh my gosh, I want you back. Or maybe there's someone they'll go, hey, Craig, I'm not really clear on this. Can you just clarify this for me? And I sometimes do it, but I sometimes chuckle like, well, what's your current agent doing? You know what I mean? So if whoever you are, if you're not getting questions answered, if you have questions, reach out. That's what we're here for, just to be a resource and most importantly, help you find the protection that you need. So
yeah, I think one thing I appreciate about it is just even the ability to, hey, like, let me be the expert. I'm not going to treat you like you're dumb,
right?
Because I think our audience generally, not to stereotype everyone,
right.
but generally doesn't want to ask questions, doesn't want to look dumb, and has an attitude of, I can figure it out. Right. I got this.
Right.
Like, I don't need help. And so I think in our conversations, one thing is like, man, this guy knows a lot and he doesn't make me feel stupid for asking questions that the average Joe just doesn't know. So that's one thing I appreciate about you. But
thanks.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. And we will, that's a wrap for this episode. And we'll catch you next time on the Contractor Commute.
Thanks so much.